Good evening and welcome. Good evening and welcome. Chris Upton in the house. Sorry, I was trying to get a bit of lamb out of my tooth. As you get older, cavities ain't so good these days, are they? Neither. Never mind. So Gary Marriott first in the house tonight. Jeff Arroway, Tracy Dodds, Michael McCluke. I give in. Lynn Thompson, Peter Piper, Michael Murray, and Adam Hudson. Good evening to you all. 13 people in the house. Well, what do you want to talk about? What do you want to talk about? Dog training, I hope. But what? Some good videos sent in this week. Some good videos sent in. Gary sent in some good videos. Steve sent in some good videos. I think Sol shared them as well. He was videoing it as well. Some good members videos sent in. And I think it makes so much difference. I can put up video after video after video, but I think it's the members videos that sometimes are really good. Really, really good. The difference between using natural ability and working for themselves. Is that a question, Lynn? Or is that the videos that you've been watching? There's a hell of a difference between using natural ability or working for themselves. I saw your video as well, Lynn. I thought it was a great video. It's not nice when people give feedback and it's not positive, but I look at it as positive because it's constructive. It's constructive criticism rather than negative criticism. There's so many people easy to give out negative criticism, aren't they, about other groups, other sites, what other people are doing. At the end of the day, in the Corleone talk, when people share videos or they put videos, send videos to me, and we put them up in what do we put them up in? See, you'll have to help me here now. See, my memory's going. Patreon, that's what it is. Patreon, isn't it? When we put it up on Patreon, there you go, Adam. It helps so many people in the groups, and yet I look how many videos get actually watched in the groups, and it's quite surprising compared to, like I say before to you, you put something up on YouTube, it gets watched by so many more people because of the what do they call it? What do they call it? There's a word for it. Come on, you must help me here. Foot. Come on, you could have helped me here. Foot. A lot more people watch Patreon, don't they? A lot more people watch YouTube than they watch Patreon. Patreon to some people is like, where do you get into Patreon? How do you get into Patreon? Footfall. Is that what you call it? I don't know. I just don't know what I'm talking about tonight. I haven't had enough wine yet. That's the problem, isn't it? No, I'm in pain actually. I'm in pain with my leg. My ankles. Patreon is good to use the search function so you can look at what you're waiting to trade. Yeah, I think it is, Adam. And at the end of the day, that's what is so important about the index. Like Sol said from the start, you have to put your index up so people can find what they're looking for reasonably easy. That's the whole point. That's the whole point. Julian Lees, good evening, Corleone family. Hope you're all well. There you go. Julian's asking if you're all well. So any questions about dog training? Any questions about dog training? I thought Gary's video was so honest because he showed you the mistakes the dog was making. He showed you how the dog was misreading him because he was giving the dog's name and then the command, and there was a break before the command. And it just shows how fast dogs read your every movement. And you won't believe how fast they'll read your movement as well as your verbal commands. So your verbal commands, just because you want to send your dog for a retrieve, if you go Billy when you want the dog to go for a retrieve, what are you going to do when Billy runs in? what you're going to do when Billy's not listening to you. You shout Billy, he's not going to understand, is he? And yet, it's hell of a funny because the dog watches something down and you go Billy, he's going to go for it because you've given his name. And we're talking about working a couple of dogs together. And if you're working a couple of dogs together, I don't do this if I'm working one dog. I never give the dog's name and then the command. But what you've got to do, if you're gonna give it, you've got to give the dog's name and then the command. But if you cut out the name and just give the command, the dog will go. But if you've got a number of dogs, then which dog will go? Because you can't blame the dogs. They're taught to go on the command. And then as you advance your training, you start using their name and then the command. And I find that it creates confusion if you don't get your timing right. As simple as that. The other videos that they put up was really good was Steve. He put up some videos and asked people for their opinion of what they thought. And one of the things what they did is, and I totally understand, is they were sending a dog for a retrieve, fire a shot, throw out a dummy, or a dummy was out there, send the dog for the shot for the retrieve. On the way out, firing a shot. What do you want your dog to do? You want your dog to stop. But if you're picking up with a dog and the guns are firing, you don't want your dog stopping every time a shot goes off. And yet if you're shooting and that's all you're doing is shooting over your dog and rough shooting it, or want it for competition, you want it to stop every time a shot goes off without fail. So the dog has got to understand that when you send it for a retrieve, other birds are going to be shot, aren't they? Other birds are going to be shot at, and especially on big shoots where you've got, you're picking 40, 50 birds per drive, per picker up, right? You're not just picking 3 or 4. You're picking up 30 or 40 birds, even 50 birds, 60 birds sometimes on one drive with your dog. One thing I heard the other day is you're far better off having a number of dogs that are good than one dog that is really good, because 2 or 3 dogs can do a better job than one dog. I agree in a situation of if all 3 dogs are steady, all 3 dogs are trained to a good standard, then there's nothing wrong with that at all. And it's an asset and an advantage, because if you've got a bird down and you send that dog for that bird and it's a runner and another one comes down and that dog is on that bird, if you've only got one dog, you're going to have to mark that bird in. When your dog comes back, you're going to have to handle it on a blind if you've only got one dog. If you've got 2 or 3 dogs, you can send one of the other dogs. So if you've got a young dog, you can set your young dog up and give it less retrieves than the more experienced dog. So you give the young dog the easier retrieves and the the more experienced dogs, the blinds and the more difficult retrieves. As simple as that. But I like going out with one dog and then rather swap that dog over. Why? Because I want to educate that dog. It doesn't move till told. Just because other dogs are out there doesn't mean you can fidget. And at the end of the day, I've always done it that way. But that's not saying that's the way or the highway. I'm saying that's the way I've done it. So when I've gone out picking up before, I'd take 3 or 4 dogs, but I'd swap them over during the day. So I'll keep them in the truck, swap them over. So I'll give them 2 drives and sometimes 3 drives. I mean, sometimes I just take one dog and work that dog all day. But most of the time, if I want to school a dog, especially a young dog, I might only go and do 1 drive with it or 2 drives, put it away, let it learn to switch off in the car while everything else is happening, and work another dog. If you've got a real good dog and you're lazy, you tend to put the younger dogs aside and not work them, because your older dog's not going to give you no pressure for the day. He's going to do the job really well. But I like a dog to be able to do it all. I like a dog to be able to sit there with other dogs if you ask it to, but I like a dog to be able to mark, get straight to the full and straight back. And if you've got a dog that can mark and get to the full, you've got less time that the dog is away from you. And I'll have dogs going out, picking a bird, on the way back, another bird is shot. They'll look and see it down, come back with that bird, then I'll send them again, because they're what we call shoot wise. And it takes a season, I think. You can train a dog to a good standard, but if you haven't given it experience on the shoot, I don't think it's a real trained gun dog. until it's had a full season on the shoot, in my opinion. Then you start seeing what sort of dog you've got and the quality of your dog and the quality of your training. It's as simple as that. It's very hard if something falls into the dog's path while it's on the way out. Yeah, it is, Adam. Yeah, and at the end of the day, the dog's supposed to pick the first thing it comes across, and so I wouldn't knock a young dog too much for that. I might say to an older dog, if it's a runner, the first bird I'm sending the dog for, and then it drops another bird, I might blow the stop whistle and say leave that and push the dog back. But you're right. Nothing. I've never met a perfect dog yet. Trained dogs to a very high standard that people would be jealous of on shoots and always watching you and asking you questions about it. But I've never met a dog that's never gone wrong. All dogs go wrong. Situations, the temptation and the situations we put them in, they're bound to, aren't they? It's great pressure, isn't it? But isn't it wonderful how those dogs want to work for us? I think at least one season to start to learn the trade. I think you're right, Gary, dead right. And it's so important. So many people say to me, "Oh, I'll take a young dog and keep it on the lead." It doesn't do them any good. It winds them up. And then if you take the lead off to send them, they turn their head and they miss the fall, and then they're running out there and they're picking anything that's dropping out the sky. What you do is you condition that dog like a torpedo. That dog sees that bird down, puts his head down, and goes and picks that bird. That's the only thing that dog is so focused on. You could have a plane crash in the next field. You could have a car crash. You could have people screaming at their dogs. Your dog is going to go straight through that field and pick that one bird because you've conditioned it that that's the most important thing in that dog's life, to listen to you and get reward from you for doing it. That's so important. And do I miss picking up? Yes, I do. But do I miss the time and the effort and all the work we put in for absolutely next to nothing? No, I don't. Because at the end of the day, if you ask the shoot captain, come and paint your house for £25 a day or whatever you get, I think he'd tell you to sod off. But we don't do it for the money. And I don't think we've ever done it for the money. We do it for the love of the training of the dogs, don't we? But I think there's a balance here, because if they're getting £50 a bird or £40 a bird plus VAT, whatever you want to call it, if you're not worth the price of a bird, then I think it's a bit of a joke. Good evening, Jim. But if you start telling people that, that's not going to make you very popular, is it? Because they want people doing it for 20 quid or for nothing and saying it's a privilege to go picking up. You are there to do a job. And if you're doing that job properly, I believe that you should be paid. And it only covers your fuel, really, and a bit of wear and tear. You take your dog to the vets once, you've lost all your beaters money for the season. We don't do it for the money. There's no way we do it for the money. If you're on a shoot and you're training dogs, and you can send the dogs for the birds you want to send the dogs for and not send the dog for birds that are too difficult or may put the dog in a situation where it can go wrong, then you shouldn't be paid. As simple as that in my eyes. If you're there to do a job, pick up, make sure there's nothing left behind, you're worth every penny of one bird, in my opinion, plus VAT. And when these shoots turn around and say, you have to declare it yourself and pay your own tax on your earnings of picking up money, I think is an absolute disgrace. Like I said, Chris Upton is never going to be the most popular person in the world because he says it the way he sees it. Exactly, Adam. Proper picking up is hardcore. If you put the time, the effort, you turn up every time without fail, you seriously pick up rather than just train dogs, you're an asset to any keeper if you've got a good dog or a couple of good dogs. It's as simple as that. Exactly, Gary. It covers the cost of the day, the fuel, food, and food and drink wipes it out. A lot of people work 40 hours a week or 45 hours a week, and they'll have that one day off where they want to go beating or they want to go picking up, And so they're giving their day off away from their family to work their dog. I'm not saying you don't enjoy it. I'm not saying it's not beneficial to the dog. But my opinion is, if we're not worth the price of a bird, and this is the problem, isn't it? Years ago, birds used to be 20 quid, then they're 30 quid, then they're 40 quid. Everything's going up. All the expenses are going up. But beaters' money's not going up. Beaters' money's not going up. If you turn up without a dog, I don't think you should get paid as much with a dog. But guess what? On some of these shoots, they don't want dogs because they've got that many birds on the ground. They just want stick men. I totally understand that. Would I turn up with a stick to go beating just to keep yourself fit? No way. No way at all. The only way I'm going to go on a shoot is if I'm taking my dog and I can work my dog and educate my dog. Then it's beneficial towards me as well as beneficial towards that shoot. And that's what the important thing is in my mind of why I've stood my ground and said, listen, if I'm not worth the price of a bird, then I'm sorry, but I'd rather go out shooting with my gun, rough shooting, and enjoying going back to what I did before I went on the shoots and worked for shoots. I was asked to go on shoots. I never begged to go on shoots. I was asked to go on shoots because I had good dogs. If you've got good dogs, you'll get asked. As simple as that. But what some shoots are doing, they are manipulating what they want. They're saying that, that it's hard to make a living. I totally understand it's hard for everybody. But if a beater is not worth the price of a bird, right, then I'm sorry. Or a picker up is not worth the price of a bird, and I'm sorry. But I'm picking 40 to 50 birds per drive with my dog. And each bird is that price. And I understand everybody's got expenses. Everybody's got outgoings. A good beater shoot day is the least you can do. Exactly. A good beater shoot day is the least the shoot can do. And I'll tell you what, Adam, I'm not going to name the shoot. I've even seen the shoot put in 3-4 extra days before the beaters shoot to make up extra money for the shoot. I totally understand that. And then the beaters struggle to find any birds at all because they've absolutely blitzed the area to try and make more revenue for the guns, for the shoot, and the beaters have lost out. There's nothing better than a shoot giving the shoot a break for 3 to 4 days before the beaters, even a week sometimes before the beaters come on and have that final beaters day. And I've seen them shooting birds so low with obsessive shooting. Shooting's more important than having a happy bunch of people from all mixed backgrounds enjoying a day out. As simple as that. Enjoying, with each other. Picking up last year, got £40. The birds were 56. Not been told the prices for this year, but they better be good. That's only one of the shoots I work on. The thing is, Gary, there's a difference between £40 and £20, isn't there? It's like going back to Victorian times, isn't it? I'll pay slave labor. I'll pay slave labor. If a man is not worth, with the price of fuel, the price of everything's gone up for everybody. It's not just gone up for the shoots. It's not just gone up for the shoots. The shoots have put the prices up. They've got people coming, and I understand that they have to work within their budget. But it's bad business if you don't look after your beaters and your pickers up who come regular and never let you down. Because without them, you'd be in trouble. You could be the best keeper in the world, but without them, you're going to be in trouble. You're going to be losing birds. And the idea is the birds you want in the bag. And it's not the birds that are all around the gun's feet. They can pick them. They can let their dogs off the lead and let them pick them, or let them run around headless chickens, because they think because I'm paying to be on the shoot, my dog can do what it likes. That's up to them. It's the ones out the back that no one sees, the ones that are pricked, the ones that are lightly hit, that need to be picked and put into the bag, because you'll get the guns turned around on paid days. Well, I'm only paying for what you've picked. You may have a syndicate who'll turn a blind eye, and you say, well, you've had all your birds today, and you've got the clicker out, and that's how many shots you've had, and that's how many birds you should have killed. But on a paid day, some of them guns want to know exactly what's in the bag. And when when shoots that are supposed to be commercial shoots and professional start hiding the wagon with the birds on because they don't want the guns to know how many birds we picked, I don't think we're doing a good job. I honestly don't think we're doing a good job, because it's about honesty, it's about integrity. If they're paying that sort of money, £40 a bird, they should only have to pay £40 a bird if those birds have been shot and picked. It's all right saying, oh, I'll add an extra 20 birds on because you've pricked them and they've gone on and we'll find them in the next couple of days. If you've got good pickers up will go out there and search for those birds. And they're the birds that matter. It's really, really hard to find good beaters and pickers up. Lots of trainers don't teach you anything about actually working your dog on a shoot or what your actual job is exactly. And the problem is, Adam, you're dead right. Some people in rural areas rely on beating money. It's a source of income for them. Of course it is. Of course it is. Because if you do 4 shoots a day, 4 shoots a week, and you're a pensioner, it's a little bit of pin money, isn't it? But it's not. You're not going to get rich at it. You're not doing it for a living, are you? You're not earning an hourly wage. If you break that down to hourly, it's criminal. But I'm not moaning about we should be paid. I'm moaning that there's etiquette both ways. We do it because we love it. We do it because we absolutely love it. And some people, I've had people in the past say, listen, I don't do it for the money. And I've said to them in front of the owners, then you can hand your money back then, can't you? But that kid who turns up and gets half beater's money because he's a youngster, who turns up every week, tapping his stick, keeping a straight line, working on the shoot and being an asset and learning the business from the bottom up. Then the next couple of seasons, he might have a little dog and he start working the dog. But he starts off a young kid. We're supposed to be bringing youngsters into the sport. We're supposed to be bringing people through into the sport to promote the sport. Steve Pace says a good picker-up team is hardly seen because they are outside looking for birds lightly and are running. I agree in a way, Steve, but there's 2 ways to look at it this way. A good dog man can stand with the guns and not disturb the guns and pick the runners around the guns without disturbing the guns. A man with a dog that's can work for itself can be out the back with a more unruly dog, not so well trained, not so steady, not so conditioned, and do a brilliant job out the back picking up. But the guy at the front can also go out the back. And they get so many people these days, I want to be up front with the guns. I want to be up front with my phone taking photos. You're not doing a job, you're taking photos with your phone. You need both hands free. You need to be watching what's going on. It's as simple as that. Most dogs can't even ride on a quad bike. Exactly. Exactly. Mine's not got a quad bike, but they're getting a mule. There are people turning up to pick up. They have a certificate of a rosette, but they don't have a clue how to dispatch a bird. Exactly, Gary. I've had this before. I've had women turning up with gloves on because they don't like the feel of a bird when they pick it up, and they have not got a clue how to dispatch a bird. You have to teach them, and the problem is, what cheesed me off on one shoot I was on, they made you the picking up captain, so you have to now organize everything. You don't get no extra money for it. You just get, hang on, Chris, you've been here for a long while now. You can be picking up captain. The picking up captain used to pick his own pickers up, because when the shoot first started, they didn't have any decent pickers up. They only had people who were shooting, and most of them had poor standard of dogs, and it would take half the day looking for birds. So then what happened is I came along with some good competition dogs and started bringing people with competition dogs, or people who've trained with me and trained their dogs to a good standard. So all of a sudden we uprated the standard of the team that they had, and they would get compliment after compliment after compliment. We would do outside days, rough days, where we'd walk up with the guns, and the guns would walk up and work. They'd shoot over our dogs, or they'd stand in a little valley and we'd push the birds over them, like 6 or 7 of us on a day's, or outside day, we'd call it, an outside day. Fantastic training for us. The guns appreciated it. The guns had fun, we got paid, and everything was rosy. And then all of a sudden, someone comes along and says, hang on, we don't do it for the money, we do it for the love of it. And I said, well, I'm sorry, but I do it for the love of it. But if I can't be paid for traveling 4 days a week, my fuel bill for traveling for 4 days a week, then I'm going to go somewhere else or do something else. And that's how much you're appreciated. Been there for 15 years, and that was the only reason that I walked away from it, because I thought to myself, if I'm not worth the price of a bird without having to pay VAT on my having to pay tax on my earnings. Now you should declare your earnings. Everyone says, how many people for years and years and years got 20 quid for picking up? And did you go and tell the tax man you got 20 quid? Did you? Well, you're all evil, because you should be pulled in front of the tax man. It was not a wage. It was helping out for the expenses. And then the taxman got involved with this, didn't they? And they said you have to declare it, and the shoots have to put your name down, and you have to declare your earnings. At the end of the day, if I'm going to declare those earnings, I want to be paid a reasonable amount. It's as simple as that. So I pulled away from that. And have I missed it? Yes, I've missed it to a certain extent. But have I missed the hassle of it all? No, I haven't. Because I love going out, shooting over my dogs, and not having any hassle at all. Because I said to the shoot captain, I have to declare my earnings because I'm self-employed. So I have to put down my earnings as self-employed. But if I have to say 4 days a week, I go out on a shoot and get paid 20 quid, and it costs me 20 quid to get there, the taxman's going to go, well, hang on, if you're earning a living, how the hell are you earning a living earning £20 for a day's work? Well, he's not taking into account that the dogs that I take to the shoot, I'm being paid for. So you have to explain all that as well. The dogs you're educating on the shoot, you have to explain that. So for me, as a professional who has to declare everything he earns, right, I had to write everything down. When 20 odd years ago, when they gave you 20 quid, no one said you had to declare that. I thought it was just pin money. I was self-employed, but I was not a gun dog trainer 25 years ago. Then what happens? All of a sudden, you tell the taxman you're now getting paid £20 a day. £20 a day, and you're getting taxed on £20 a day. People say, well, you won't get taxed on £20 a day. Yes, you do get taxed on £20 a day. Because my bookkeeper said it is not worth the hassle. You might as well not take the money. And there's the problem, isn't it? What do you think a reasonable payment should be? I personally think 40 quid. I think people who get 40 quid for a day's work is fine. Not a problem. It's not taking the mickey out of you, Adam. It's covering your expenses of today's cost of traveling 10 mile down the road, 20 mile down the road. Some people travel 50, 60 mile down the road to a shoot, don't they? At the end of the day, it would be worth declaring them, wouldn't it? As in, you're supposed to declare everything. So you pay £100 a day, Adam. There you go. But guess what? The shoots wouldn't manage on £100 a day, would they? They'd say they can't make it pay. Well, so we pay £50 and provide food and drink all day for our beaters and picker up. I think that's absolutely fantastic, Adam. I think that's acceptable, totally acceptable. Taxman needs to take into account expenses, travel costs. They will not. I'm telling you, Michael, they will not. They will not. I mean, I leave everything to my bookkeeper and my accountant. And at the end of the day, it's not worth the hassle. I even said to him, listen, just put fuel in my car from your fuel tank once a month, and we'll call it quits. Fill my car up, right? Because my car will take 100 quid, right? Unbelievable. So like I did, I just had to knock it on the head, because if you're doing 4 days a week and you're declaring 4 days a week, At the end of the day, you're not making nothing by the time you declare it. So you're wasting your time completely. Absolutely wasting your time completely. And once they change the rules, once they realize, hang on, this is a massive industry that we can tax. Carry on, I think 50 quid. There you go. Now, it's those subjects, isn't it, that as soon as you start talking about it, some people get shitty, don't they? Some people get shitty about it. At the end of the day, I absolutely adore training my dogs. And training the dogs in an environment that you're rough shooting, you're going out, up gets a bird. If it's not safe to shoot, you don't shoot it. If it's not worth shooting because you're going to have struggle to get the dog over the edge, or you have to go to the end of the field and send the dog back, I might not shoot it. I'm looking for the bird that will teach the dog. And so I want to drop a bird in the field that the dog's hunting in. I want the dog to see it down and go and pick it. I might drop it over a hedge if it's a hedge I know, and send the dog over the hedge. But what I'm looking for is I'm looking to train the dogs. That's the only reason that I shoot. Some people go out shooting because that was like mackerel fishing, Adam. What's Taxman needs to take into account expenses. Yeah, like a bit like mackerel fishing. Yeah, you try that. Look, I'm going mackerel fishing, but you should be paying tax on it. If you were, yeah, you're right, and that's the problem, isn't it? That is the problem. So you can come unstuck, can't you? Because it's like everything, isn't it? It's like, say you went and did a boot sale. You went and did a boot sale, and you made 150 quid. Do you declare that 150 quid to the taxman? Do you say, Mr. Taxman, I've just made 150 quid on a boot sale because I've sold some of my stuff that I bought? Hang on, you paid tax on the stuff that you bought, that you've had sitting around your house, and you decided to take it to a boot sale and sell it. Well, if you're self-employed, where do you draw the line? Do you have to declare that? Or do you say, no, hang on, no one else declares it. People sit on boot sales left, right, and centre. People run businesses on boot sales and don't declare it. So as a professional, it just wasn't worth the hassle for me to be arguing that I've got to put my name down to the taxman to every shoot that I go on that I receive £20 or £25. It just wasn't worth the hassle. It wasn't worth the hassle. So that's what made me say, hang on, if I'm not worth the price of a bird, then at the end of the day, I draw the line. I draw the line. And I'm sometimes my worst enemy, aren't I? Because I stick to my principles. I like to be out with my dogs and working them. That could be beating, picking up, rough shooting, or pigeon shooting. Exactly, Gary. That's the idea. That's the idea. We do it because we love it. But at the end of the day, I don't think people should exploit us the same as we shouldn't exploit other people. If a keeper's got the decency to let your dog in, you do not go into his main drives pushing up birds just because you want to teach your dog, give your dog some flushers. You're far better off anyway on the outside of the shoot, pushing the birds in for the keeper and teaching the dog to hunt properly and not just come across thousands of birds. I've seen so many people over the years exploit the keeper's goodwill by going and putting their dog on main drives because they want to get into lots and lots of birds. That's totally wrong. I'm not going to name them, but it's totally wrong. It's not what I would do, because I would think, well, what would you feel like if you were the keeper and the keeper would give you the permission and trust to push the birds back from the outside boundaries into his shoot? You have to have some etiquette, and etiquette is so important. It's like saying, people abuse it. You're dead right, Adam. People abuse it. The keeper trusts you, and then you wonder why keepers are a little bit like, oh, I'm not. What are you doing? What's he doing over there? What's he doing over there? It takes years and years to build a good repetition. See, my head's gone fine. It takes a long while to gain that. Integrity is everything, says Julian. You're dead right. A shooter near me has many birds. You don't need a dog. One of the pickers up told me he's seen field farming dogs lose their head because there's too many birds, too many dogs, in the pocket. Yeah, you're dead right. To train a dog to win competition, you actually want it to hunt just for the fun of hunting. You don't want it thousands and thousands of birds in front of it. But then once you start taking a dog on a shoot and you go in the beating line and you're pushing back bird after bird after bird, and the dog is flushing and stopping, flushing and stopping, flushing and stopping. To some people in the beating line, it doesn't matter. They just get the dog in the beating line and the dog pulls and the dog chases birds and the dog comes back and the dog does a semi-reasonable job for the keeper. The keeper has to put up with the fact that he's got dogs on there that are a little bit wild, but at least they're finding birds. And at the end of the shooting season, towards the end of the shooting season, he wants those dogs because those dogs can get out and find birds where other people who keep them a lot tighter and keep them in control because of competition, they're not really doing a job if they're just not putting up birds. And you could walk them birds through. Adam says, where there are big volumes in game cover, you should call your dog up, get nearer the end. Otherwise, you can't control the flush of birds. Exactly. And that's the whole point, Adam. With someone who knows what they're doing with dogs and are good with dogs, they're an asset in that situation because you can have them as stops and the other beaters can be pushing the birds into the area you want, and they can keep trickling those birds out over the guns 20, 30 at a time. And so you're not having one big flush. So as they come into the area that you want them taken off from, you can have a good dog sitting there, holding them back so they're building up. But as they come through at 20 at a time, putting them up and then stopping and then coming back in and waiting for the next 20, 30 birds to come through. And that's why it's so important that we've got people of all standards on the shoots. We don't need everybody to be a field trial champion, or we don't need people having the experience that I've got. But like Adam says, if you haven't got people on there teaching people how to do it properly, it's like, how do you know what discipline to give if you've never been taught how to give discipline or when to give discipline? The world's gone mad. You've got women turning up with pet dogs on leads, whining and yipping like shit, and keepers going, yeah, come into the beating line because you're a friend of the friend of the friend. And at the end of the day, if you're in charge of a picking up team, you don't want them people in your picking up team. They don't give you the credit that you deserve for all the work you put in and the quality that you want to produce of the job that you do as well. Because if I'm going to do a job, I want to do it properly. I don't want to be doing it half-heartedly or get so cheesed off with it. I used to get women come over to me and go, where do you want me to go? I go, what do you mean, where do you want me to go? You've been coming here for 3 years. You stand behind a gun. And if he hasn't got a dog, you're laughing. If he's got a dog, ask him if he wants to pick his birds so he doesn't get cheesed off. And if he says, yes, just leave me a couple around my dog, don't pick the ones around his dog. But if you've got a dog that won't listen to you and you've got to keep it on the lead during the drive because it won't switch off, or you take it off the lead and it runs riot and it's running between gun to gun on the actual peg. I've seen dogs cocking their legs on guns, bags and stuff like that. They shouldn't be there. Those dogs shouldn't be there. It's a skill to have a dog sat right behind the guns and picking them runners, but leaving the dead ones. There's a skill in that, getting a dog to be able to switch off and pick the birds that you wanted to pick. But there's also a skill being out the back with an experienced dog that knows when a bird has been hit, knows when a bird is down, and will go and pick it. But I've seen people standing in pens and birds have been dropping in, especially early in the season when there's a lot of leaves on the trees, and those birds haven't even been shot. But those dogs are pegging them as they hit the wire. And they're nailing them, and they're stacking them up, and the guns aren't even shooting them, and yet the guns are having to pay for them because at the end of the day, the dogs are pegging live game that's not even been shot. Simple as that. And unless you've got the understanding and the knowledge, if you've got a novice person, you do not stick them in the middle of a pen where birds come down into the pen. They've just flown past the guns like crazy, crashed in through the trees. They may be slightly stunned because they've crashed in through the trees and they've run for cover. And they've got people in there sending their dogs, and the dogs are coming back and they're knocking the birds on the head and the birds haven't even been hit. Now, some people might say that's great. We can get the shoot finished very easy early that day. But that's not fair on the guns. And so there's etiquette all the way around, isn't there? And a good keeper will know whether he's got a good picker up or a poor picker up. And you've got to stick them out the back. You've got to teach them or put them with someone who gives them experience, lets them understand. And Adam is a fine example of putting up those days for people to teach them. If he's got the facilities, he's laughing. You can teach people the etiquette of picking up, how to dispatch a bird. I've seen people just throwing birds on the floor. It's not the way to do it. You just don't throw them on the floor. Anyway, I think dogs with experience can read the bird's body language, and I know which ones are prick. Yeah, they can. And I think the dogs could actually hear the shot hitting the birds. I honestly do. It's amazing how good dogs can be. And there's nothing better than sending a dog down a steep bank looking for a bird that you know's crashed in and it's tucked in tight, and the dog hunts for 5 minutes, and you're watching your dog from the top of the bank, and all of a sudden the dog is coming close to the bird in cover, tucked up underneath a branch or whatever, under a tree stump or whatever, and the bird gets up and runs like a stag, and that dog takes a line and goes after that bird and picks that bird. Earlier, someone was talking about natural ability. That's natural ability. Trusting the dog to do that. But what you do, if you trust the dog too much to let it do its own thing, it becomes self-employed rather than employed. You have employed the dog to work with you. You've taught the dog to work with you. If you allow the dog to have too much freedom out there too soon with a young dog for the first season, the dog becomes self-employed. The dog knows better, and yet you won't get that control back into that dog in the same way. The idea is to protect that dog. So you train the dog. You should not take a dog on a shoot before you've trained it. I don't give a damn what other people say, where they tell you, oh, give it some experience, take it on there, take it on the lead, and let it walk around and listen to the shot. No, it will just get wound up, excited, and as soon as you take the lead off, it won't listen to you. Simple as that. Train it first, take it on the shoot, protect it, and then start to introduce it straight into the deep end once the dog's had a season on the shoot. I've seen beaters dogs with certificates, rosettes, and the dog is petrified of a flag. Exactly. So have I, Adam. So have I. Trusting the dog is one of the most important things I've learned from you. Thanks, Gary. I think dogs with experience can read birds. Yeah, you read that one. Too many dogs on leads on shoots. They think they have a good dog. The whole point of it is, good point, Gary. If a dog is on a lead and a bird comes down, you've got to bend down to take the lead off the dog. That takes the dog's eye off the bird. If the dog hasn't marked it well, it's going to start to run out into that field, and another bird's going to come down, and the dog's not going to pick that bird that you've asked it to pick. It's going to switch birds, and then you start to create a bigger problem because you say, my dog won't pick the bird I've asked it to pick. It's running around like an headless chicken because other birds are dropping out of the sky. It all depends on the shoots you go on. It's better to go on to a smaller shoot with a young dog rather than a big shoot. But if you go on a big shoot, ask to be standing out the back. Go out the back and protect the dog. And there's nothing wrong with saying to a keeper, listen, can I come along to train my dog and not get paid today? Because all I want to do is concentrating on training my dog. There is where I'll have a difference of opinion to someone who says you should get paid every time you turn up on a shoot. No, you shouldn't. If you're turning up to train your young dog and you're going to protect that dog and not give that keeper a full day's work, then you don't deserve a wage. But you could say, well, you do because you only get paid, a small fee. Well, I'm sorry, but if I'll be quite happy to turn up on shoots and the keeper say, listen, Chris, I don't want to pay you, but you have fun training your dogs and enjoy it, but I'm not paying you. I'd be over the moon because I'd take young dogs and school young dogs in situations. But when you take your well-trained, well-schooled competition dog and they want you to use it as a tool, as an asset for the shoot, then you're going to have to compromise on the fact that you're going to have to square that dog up a couple of times if you allow it to become too full of itself, if it becomes too headstrong, in what it's doing. Jim says, last year on the shoot, I stood in a quiet place, picked one of two birds a day and had him off the knee during the dries. I didn't earn a penny, but it was very valuable. That is exactly it, Jim. That is exactly it. I'm not greedy. I'm not saying that everybody who turns up on the shoot should get paid. I think if your standard is poor, you shouldn't be paid. You perhaps should be given a chance to improve your standard. But dogs yipping and yapping, I don't think guns want to listen to it. I don't think dogs running around the gun's feet is acceptable. I think it puts somebody off. If someone's paying to shoot on a shoot, they don't want dogs running around them and people screaming and shouting. So I've given my input yet again in public about shoots. When you put your head above the parapet, you've got to accept you're going to be got shot at by some people. But I do know, without fail, that a lot of trial people will turn up at a shoot and say, I don't want to get paid. I just want to school my dog. I can understand that if that's what you want to do. But if you're taking money from the shoot, or the money the shoot is paying you a reasonable amount for doing a job that without you, they couldn't do the job, then I think that is debatable. It's up for questioning. It's up for a challenge. And so there's nothing wrong with, in my opinion, a trial person saying, listen, I want to take the dog to the shoot. I might pick a couple of birds for you. I don't want nothing for that. I just want steadiness, but I want to be able to use it to my advantage. Then you would greatly thank the keeper for allowing you to be there, the privilege of being there and training your dog. And to be honest with you, if you went there with a bottle of whiskey for the keeper and said, thank you so much, I really appreciate that, on the odd occasion, the keeper's going to think he's a decent guy. He comes along. He doesn't want money for it when he's training those dogs to be steady. And he gives me a little bit of a gesture to say thank you. Exactly the same the other way around. If you're doing a serious job, if you're running a picking up team and they don't think you're worth the price of a bird, then I'm sorry, I'm not running your picking up team. It's simple as that. Because I put everything into what I do. And if I do a job, I do it properly. And if you don't want it done properly, get a muppet to do it. Because guess what? I've had feedback from the shoot from the keeper saying, by God, we miss you, Chris. We miss you because you used to run the day. A good keeper shouldn't have to worry about his picking up team if he's got a good picking up person in charge. Simple as that. If you're in charge of the picking up team, the keeper wants to concentrate on the beating line, being in there, watching where the birds are going. Are they going over the guns? He doesn't stand there very often in the picking up line. The picking up captain runs the picking up team. And that's important because the keeper can't be everywhere. But the keeper needs to know that when he goes out the next day, he's not coming across 50 or 60 birds that have been left. Because if he is, those birds should have been in the bag. Now, all keepers will come across, ask Adam, all keepers will come across some birds. You're never going to pick everything. But the idea is you should have the etiquette to be looking extra for those birds that you've seen down at a distance. You go looking for them afterwards. And some days we've got back in and missed dinner because we've been that busy sweeping up afterwards, looking for birds that we've gone back to look for, because some shoots, they want to move from one drive to another drive and there's no time scale to carry on looking for the birds. So we might leave one person looking for 3 or 4 birds up in the valley and they then got to catch up with the next drive. If they haven't found them, we may go back there afterwards and look for them once the dinner break comes in. I've been back how many times and missed half an hour, 3/4 an hour of dinner break. Do I get paid? No. Do I get thanks for it? No. But it's about self-esteem, about you didn't leave those birds there. You picked them. Right? And that's the whole point. That's the whole point. People have lost the etiquette to want to be good at something. They're just like, I want to be part of something. And if it's going to be run, it's got to be run properly. I've walked a mile to get a quick bird and missed lunch. Exactly, Gary. Exactly. And that's the point. When you see the same people getting at the table and getting the drinks in, when way before anybody else, all the time, they're first back into the shoot lodge and they're having a drink and they're having a banter. They've never done anything extra in their lives, and I've seen them fill in their pockets with beers when the hostess said, "Help yourself to beers" at dinner time, and they put 2 extra beers in their pocket to go out and put in the car to take home with them. I think it's absolutely disgraceful, because there's etiquette again, isn't there? There's etiquette. And I think you're greedy about, they say you can have a brace of birds. If the keeper says help yourself to as many birds as you like, that's one thing. But if the keeper says you can have a brace of birds and you're taking 6 or 7 brace without letting them be counted, it's not fair. It's not fair, because at the end of the day, the keeper's got to know his tally of his birds. They were on the walkie-talkie telling me they've opened my port. Exactly. Yeah. What's lunch? Just Adam. Sometimes that's it. Sometimes you work right through, don't you? And at the end of the day, at my age now, I do not want to be in November stuck in a field, pissing down with rain, having a pasty, right? Well, the guns are inside, nice and warm, having a la-di-da, and taking an extra 20 minutes on the port because they're having a jolly. I personally like going out, working my dog, coming back, having something to eat, and then going out. And I don't want to sit in some damp barn waiting for the guns. And so for me, at my age now, the best thing I can do is one man and his dog, or one man and his mate and his dogs, go out rough shooting. You miserable old git. See that? Adam Hudson. You miserable old git. I think it comes with age. Miserable. Being miserable. There's nothing wrong with going out in all weather, thoroughly enjoying yourself, working your dog, enjoying that, and everybody's in the same boat. But when you have to sit there as if they are the elite and you are the serfs, I'm sorry, we've moved on. We've moved on. That was 40, 50 years ago. When are we doing that again, Chris? What, going out shooting over the dogs? Whenever Sol wants to, Steve. Exactly, Adam. Exactly. For years and years, on plenty of shoots I've been, the hoity-toity and everybody else mingle together and sit together, and I think that was great. And we used to have a meal together, and then we used to all leave the shoot logs together, get ready to go out in the afternoon. And we all got wet together, we all had a laugh together, we all had a drink together, and we all ate together. And that's the shoots that I look for as you get older, and you think, I don't need the other ones that just use you and abuse you. And that's the difference. But as soon as somebody like me puts his big mouth out there and starts talking about it, you get people turning against you, don't you? Keith says, I keep my dogs on lead when picking up, but will spend extra time picking up if needed and get invited to plenty of shoots, beating and picking up. There you go, Keith. Well done for you. There comes a time when it's time to look after number one. I think this is the problem, Jules. They don't realise when I was 17, 18, and that we used to stop, because in Cornwall we got a lot of hills. I used to stomp up these hills, and I used to pride myself being the first one to the top of the hill, or one of the first guys to the top of the hill. And for years and years, when you're that age, you're fit, aren't you? You can get to the top of the hill, and as you see the older guys struggling at the bottom, you just think, oh, the poor old boys, they're struggling. Now I'm one of the old boys down the bottom struggling, and so why shouldn't I get a little bit of quality of life rather than, nowadays they put the old boys in the mules, don't they? Years ago, the old boys didn't have to walk so far. We used to have a hill called Blood, Sweat and Tears, and Pierre will tell you about it. You would cough up blood going up the hill. Even as a youngster, you'd feel it. But it used to be a buzz whipping up the hill with your dog and not wanting to be the last one, wanting to be one of the first ones up the hill. But everybody treat the same. I also always thank the guns, the crap, and thank the team because it wouldn't happen without them. Exactly, Adam. And that's the whole point. And that's the whole point. So it's not only educating people how to pick up, educating how people should be beaten in the beating line. It's also keepers educating other keepers about etiquette. You can't scream and shout at your staff just because you're under pressure from the boss. You know, these people are doing it for nixies, and some keepers are absolutely under so much pressure they're screaming and shouting. I don't think you get the best out of the team if you're screaming and shouting. I like a calm, collective keeper, but you know you can't push his buttons because he'll stand up and say it the way it is. Give me that sort of keeper all day long. Give me the keeper who appreciates you for being there, the same as you appreciate the keeper. We also have issues fines all day. The fines go to the Teenage Cancer Trust. Lovely. Fines to the guns. Yeah. And there's a banter, isn't there? There's banter, but without being rude. I don't think there's. I've never ever felt lower class by saying to a gun, "All right, sir, morning, sir." Never ever felt anything like that because to me, I would say that to a policeman. I would say that to someone I met in the street. I don't. But I'm not bowing down to no one. Treat me decent, I'll treat you decent. It's as simple as that. I think that's a brilliant idea, Adam. Being on the phone costs you a tenner. I think everybody who's on the bloody phone should be charged a tenner. I honestly do. I used to have it in my shop when I had staff. They'd come in and they'd be on the phone. I go, "What are you doing? You're being paid to work here. You're not being paid to text on your phone." Running out of cartridges has got to be one. Yeah, there you go. Shooting white birds. Manners cost nothing. Exactly, Keith. You're dead right. Manners cost nothing. Anyway, Chris Upton's had a different rant tonight, hasn't he? Hey, he's had a bit of a different rant. But we've kept this conversation going tonight, haven't we? You're going to get some people going, frick, Upton's kicking off, saying they're not paying the beaters enough, or the picking up team enough. Well, at the end of the day, I'm entitled to my opinion as much as they're entitled to their opinion. Adam, bounty bird, kill it, it's £50. Shoot it and miss it, it's £50. Don't shoot it, it's £100. Shoes I went on last year, I was told not to speak to the owner after the second drive. Walked back to the truck, talking to him about cockers. Think he enjoyed the conversation, to be fair. Jim, that's the old point. You know, I've been out with people who are mega rich and, related to royalty and stuff like this, and they love decent banter at the right time. You can be too pushy, you can be in their face. When they're with their group, you let them be with their group. When they talk to you, you're friendly with them, they're friendly with you. They ask you what you've been doing. I used to sail a lot. I've had some wonderful conversations at dinner with shoots, on shoots with wealthy people who just live a different life to me, a completely different life. And it's funny, isn't it? If you turned around and said to them, "Listen, do you want to work for a day? I'll give you 25 quid or 20 quid, whatever it was. 10 quid, I think, when I first got on the shoot." We went on one shoot one day. Listen to this. We went on one shoot one day, a shoot round here. I won't name the shoot, but the keeper was called Mark, and he was funny. He was from up Cumbria way, and typical northerner. And he said, would you come beating for us? So we come beating, and he was watching our dogs competition. I came along, and he asked if I could bring someone else. So I brought a mate of mine who was a bit of a roughhead called Bob. Lived in a council house, but he got a good little spaniel, and he was into competition dogs as well. But he wasn't particularly fit, and he was 20 years older than me. So we had to walk everywhere on the shoot. There was no shoot transport from one drive to another drive, or it was just walk right across the whole shoot. It was miles. It was hard work. And it come dinner time, he'd give us half a can of beer. And Bob looked at him and went, "Is that it?" He said, "What do you mean, is that it?" He said, "Half a can of beer and a pasty." He said, "Not even worth a can of beer." He said, what do you think this is? He said, where do you think you are? So anyway, we all laughed and that. And he used to pay us at dinner time, see? So he then come round with the money. And it was a tenner. And I'm going back a few years. I'm going back 30 years. So he gives him a tenner. He says, is that for this morning? He said, where did you find this cheeky cunt? Can I say that? I thought to myself, you haven't got a sense of humour, have you, Mark? 10 quid for walking your arse off all day. I know it was 30 years ago, or 25 years ago, whatever it was. But I laughed at it because I thought Bob was funny. My mate Bob was funny. But, you wouldn't get out of bed for that, would you, on normal situation? But it's like, there was no shoot transport. You absolutely walked your arse off. It was unbelievable. And I don't know what, I know that up on the grouse moors, they get paid a lot more. I've never been paid on the grouse moors. I've been on the grouse moors, but I've been there invited, but never been paid. By God, that is hard work. And that hot weather we had, and the grouse season kicked in. Jesus Christ, August the 11th, wasn't it freaking hot? By God, I tell you what, you earn your money climbing up over there with dogs. I'm telling you, it's a different world. It's a different world. And I've been on other shoots that they haven't in other areas, like they haven't got valleys, so you're not climbing down the valley and up the other side. But when you went down in Cornwall, we got lots of thick cover, lots of woods. You need dogs. Without dogs, you wouldn't find the birds that were shot. And so you've got guns standing down in the valley and shooting birds that are going across the valley, and the birds are shot and still carry on. Those birds have got to be picked. So not only do you have pickers up behind the guns, you've got pickers up behind the woods, and they're sweeping through. We have beaters bus and a gun bus. Yeah, exactly, Adam. But like I say, the guns used to get ferried around on the shoot I was talking about. I'm not going to name the shoot, but the beaters had to walk everywhere, and it was one of the hardest shoots I'd been on. But I got invited, and he asked me to bring someone else because he was short. Did we go back there again? I think we went there once or twice, and that's it. I mean, Bob. I mean, I think I was 30. I was 20, 30, something like that. And Bob was in his 50s. And we used to walk up, when we used to go rough shooting, he used to have dogs that weren't as driven as mine, and he worked them longer. And I think I learned so much from that because he was into competition dogs as well. And he'd work those dogs longer than I'd worked mine. And they'd learn to pace themselves. So they weren't so driven. So he didn't win many competitions, but he could train a dog to a good standard, and he was a good trainer. But his dogs were mid-paced, where me, I knew that if you take a dog out and run it all day and hunt it all day, it's like an athlete. It'll be a long distance runner rather than a 100-meter runner. Now, what do you want out of your dog? You want your dog to work all day, don't you? So you have to condition it if you're going to work it in the beating line, or you're going to work it picking up. Picking up, you're getting a break, aren't you, during drives? But the dog's still got to cover a lot of distance. But at the end of the day, in the beating line, you're stopping and starting, aren't you? So the dog's going to stop and start. There's advantages in both, but I believe that a good dog should be able to do it all. A good dog should be able to go in the beating line, should be able to go in the picking up line, and a good dog should be able to run competition as well. That's the way I look at it. In the pocket, we have a lovely waterlogged muddy fields and thick woods plus banks. It's hard work, but wouldn't change it for the world. I love mixing with non-PC old folks. Exactly. I think that's what it's about. I think you're dead right there in the pocket. It's about mixing it up with all walks of life. And I've had some wonderful banter with toffs, with people who live in council houses, people who are doing it for a bit of pin money. At the end of the day, I think we are privileged to have a love for what we do. And without the dogs, I would never have been in that situation. I would have never put myself in that situation. So I've got to thank the shoots, and I've got to thank the hosts, and I've got to thank the people for opening my eyes and teaching me so much and giving me an insight into the dog training world, because I come from a town background. I wasn't a country boy. I didn't have parents who was country people. I fell in love with something, with gun dog competition. and I fell in love with working dogs in the field. And I still enjoy working dogs in the field more than I enjoy competition. But you can't take it away from you once you've been there and had it. It's all life's experiences. And I think that's what it's all about, everybody. So there you go. That's Chris Upton. He's given you an hour tonight. And we've actually talked about a subject, haven't we, really? Rather than just poking stuff out the air and not really knowing what to talk about. So I hope you've enjoyed tonight. Bollocks to you all. Great chat tonight. Thanks, really interesting bollocks, and good night. Good night, Tracy. Thanks for tuning in. I've been on a shoot in Cumbria when at lunchtime my mate said you can tell who the guns are because they bring their own HB sauce and pork pies. I mean, some keepers' wives, they work really hard, don't they, everyone? I mean, I've been on some shoots where the keeper's wife prepares plateau for all the beaters and all that. And on some shoots, I used to make a big stew for everybody in the shoot lodge. I used to enjoy it because I enjoy cooking, and I'd shoot some stuff, or the keeper would give me some stuff, some venison and that, and they'd say, make a venison stew, could you, Chris? And I'd make a venison stew and put loads of vegetables in it and bring it in and feed everybody at lunchtime, because at the end of the day, you work yourself off into the ground. It's nice, isn't it, if you get appreciated for it. If Carlsberg did working dogs, it would be the Corleone method all the way. Yeah, if you train to the Corleone standard and you train dogs the way I show you how to train dogs, you will be appreciated by most people in the shooting community. It's as simple as that. Anyway, on that note, bollocks and good night to all of you. Chris Upton signing off.